beauty in something that is ugly is something that confuses many people, myself included. How can you find something pretty when it's ugly at the same time? I mean, when you look at Ed, Edd and Eddy, at first glance, you won't necessarily call it pretty. And yet, when staring at these images of Peak Creek, after the sun comes down, the city with its warped perspective and inconsistent buildings altogether give it this melancholy feeling. In some ways, it brings nostalgia because I've seen this before and at the same time, never been here. It's in all its entirety beautiful. Another example is the Max, a character who's meant to look like a superhero but wears an ugly costume. The people of the world surrounding Max is horrific, and yet it's the dark alleys, the dirty and often crowded garbage-filled streets that are the aspects that ground it. It almost takes a persona of its own, and with characters that are broken enough, they can sort of coexist within it. The other night I was with my friends hanging out and we decided that we wanted to watch a movie, something none of us have never seen. To which I brought up a movie which I have seen, Tekken Concrete. The way I sold the movie was to have an open mind and that the story was great. A pretty cliche way of selling anything you think is good. And during the opening scene, not even 5 minutes into the movie, this very one had them all check out. And I continuously had to refocus them and tell them to stick with it. This is again good. Well, fast forward and they couldn't finish the movie because of its animation. It was too weird to digest, too out there compared to most of the aesthetics they're used to when watching anime. It didn't matter how many times I said the story was good or how the world was so rich and interesting to not even just explore but just to look at. To them, it was ugly. It's why this video exists, to really show what lies underneath. Taiyo Matsumoto is the artist behind these works, and you can quickly take notice of how distinct his art style is. It's almost a mixture of realism and simplicity. Characters' anatomy often reaching unbelievable proportions and yet feel believable. Faces sometimes seem distorted. Lines that aren't straight by any means still manage to bring consistency to the drawing. You get the point. It's not what you normally see compared to the catalog of other comics out there. His works often viewed by countless other people as a meta manga or stories that criticize the very form in which they operate. To the point that his style was so different that editors kinda had to make sure he followed some form of traditional standards so he could fit in. And it worked. Taiyo's stories being some of the most emotionally impactful stuff you'll see in this lifetime. And through these stories, he has achieved countless awards and recognition that it's almost a crime that outside of Japan, not a lot of people know of his works. Which brings us to my first exposure to his works, Tekken Concrete. Tekken Concrete is beautiful in every sense of the word, from its breathtaking interpretation of Japan to its way of visualizing what a character is feeling or just how fluid the movement is during intense scenes or just people talking. And the story itself following two brothers, one named Black and the other named White. One is older, the other is younger. The idea being that Black has to take care of his little brother White from the evil that slowly consumes Treasure Town. And by no means it's an easy task when constantly from all sides there are cops trying to separate the two, conflicts between gang members and new insidious crime lords trying to make a name for themselves. The town for the most part is filled with hardworking people who also try to maneuver through the constant conflicts within it. However, when you look at their conditions, you can quickly tell it isn't really great. The city just looks over-bloated and dirty. It looks like it's just been festering in its ugliness for so long. To which now the head of the mafia group decides it's time to cleanse the town to bring some new life to it. But as you know, not everyone is on board. The man named Rat, who was raised by the town itself, thinks that bringing change would destroy what makes the town the way it is. This tug of war between the two lasting the entire movie, to which again Black and White must find a way to survive it. Again, it's no easy task when your little brother runs off by themselves after you tell them to stay put, when you can barely find any food for the day, when the only place you can call home is the dark and wet alleys of the town. Because as long as he's with you, he's your responsibility, yours to take care of and survive. And as you can imagine, defending yourself causes problems for everyone else, to which then they see you as part of the problem and they try to exterminate you both in the name of progress. Treasure Town is an ugly town, but can be a beautiful one too. Ping Pong the animation is what I'd like to call the sports anime that isn't a sports anime, but it is. It doesn't really focus all that much on the aspect of ping pong on the same level as Slam Dunk does with basketball, where it explains certain rules and mechanics of the sport. With ping pong, it almost expects you to know this already, and what it does is redirects your gaze to its huge cast of characters, each one dealing with something personal that only they understand. Ping pong just so happens to connect them all on some level. A great example being Kang Wenge, a popular high school Chinese ping pong player who comes to Japan as a second-year exchange student for Suhido High School to become the captain and guide of their ping pong club. When you're first introduced to Kong, he's just a cocky and overconfident kid trying to show off in front of all the other students, oftentimes belittling them because of their current skill level in ping pong. But it isn't until you start to peel the layers off is when Kong understands what it means to lose, when we learn he's been trying to support his family from the age of 8. The personal struggle of coming to a new and foreign place where you feel like you have to prove yourself in some way. What you get is a character that at first glance seems a certain way, only to find out that they're just like anyone else, with fears, insecurities, and doubt, which rings true for most characters in ping pong trying to juggle relationships. Learning to admit that maybe you're just not as good as you thought you were, and maybe it's time to move on to something else. Or learning to chase dreams.
Next time aim for the open water, huh? Or stick with ping pong.
Ping pong is ugly. Characters can look weird to the point where you can just easily go and watch something else. But to me, that ugliness grounds it. It adds a level of reality to it. But the way the story is conveyed in ping pong, not only through its art but also through its uses of actual comic borders dividing scenes and moments where color is completely rejected and black and white reign superior, it's some of the best anime I've ever seen. When you slow down to pay attention to the animation, you realize it's not janky, but it's quick, smooth, and snappy, and when it works, which is 100% of the time. You get it. I love this anime. It brings me joy when characters I've invested in for so long can finally come full circle, can learn to respect and coexist with each other, learn from one another, and seeing where each character ends up by the end of it truly feels like they were alive for those 12 episodes I spent with them. I watched them grow and cry, lose meaning, and find it again. Ping pong is ugly, but it's also one of the most beautiful stories out there. I was replaying Metal Gear Solid 3 the other day, and the game came out in 2004 for the PS4, 3 generations ago, and I can easily say it's still a masterpiece. Or dare I say, the best game ever made. And you wonder, how can a game from the PS2 compared to, I don't know, God of War Ragnarok, or recently Spider-Man 2, or the countless Resident Evil remakes? The answer to that is, it doesn't. From a technical standpoint, those games are far more superior. Metal Gear Solid 3 is outdated and clunky at times. The Fury fight still makes me rage like nothing else ever has. But Metal Gear Solid 3, despite its technical faults, still surpasses those games. From its sense of exploration to its enemy AI being ridiculously good to this day, its environment being just perfect, its boss fights being so diverse in how you can tackle them. I mean, fighting an elite sniper who is camouflaged within a jungle and you basically have to find him and kill him in a variety of ways. There's even one moment where you can kill him before the boss fight even occurs, and this is what makes this game so incredible, with a 10 out of 10 story. And from my knowledge, moments like these haven't been replaced ever since. Feel free to tell me otherwise in the comments. But this is my point. Despite the quote-unquote ugly look of the game, there's layers upon layers to this game that many other modern games fail to even create. And it's how I see every other piece of media that I've mentioned in this video. Because if you don't try to embrace the weird look of something, you could be missing out on a story that could probably connect with you or not. I leave you with this. Go out there and consume brand new things, even though sometimes it may seem not worth your time. Because you never know, maybe it will be. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit the bell notification to get notified for more of my videos, and hit like and subscribe again if you like this video. But I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.